Hi there, my name is Lewis, and I want to talk about time travel. And before you ask, no, I'm not crazy. When I say time travel, what I'm referring to is the cinematic universe of time travel movies, not the scientific explanation. The reason for this is because I'm a huge fan of these types of films and want to basically nerd out as much as possible while talking about them. That and the fact that I'm not smart enough to even begin explaining some quantum theory level BS that other people might go into. I'm going to look into the narratives of these types of stories and then the methods and types of time travels that are frequently used in films, and how each uses the theory and their own timelines to explain paradoxes and the rules of each methods and how they affect the story. You with me so far? But before all that, let's explore the history of time travel stories, and let's begin where most time travel films start, somewhere in the middle, or at the end. Or at the end, which is actually the start, or somewhere in the beginning where it loops back around and starts itself from nothing. What? You know what? Let's just start at the beginning. Although the idea of what counts as a time travel narrative is fairly recent storytelling techniques in history, the core elements of what makes up a time travel narrative dates back all the way to around 400 BC, with the Mahabharata from Hindu culture. Now, the Mahabharata is a long epic poem, like really long, with so many different stories and characters in it, but we're going to focus on just one king and his daughter. The story goes that a king went looking for a suitor for his daughter, and so he sought guidance from a god in the divine realm, god of Braha. The king soon learned that time passes differently on earth as it does in the divine realm, and when he returned home, his whole kingdom was gone and had been for hundreds of years. Man, tough break. So, although it wasn't exactly called a time travel story in that era, it certainly had some elements that are used in modern films and narratives. So, it counts, and I won't listen to your opinion. But this list is actually going to focus on the cinema history, so let's look at what film came first. Oh, and spoilers ahead. But the first film is like 80 years old at this point, so it's your fault if you haven't seen it yet. The first one is A Kentucky Yankee in King Arthur's Court from 1921, a silent film adapted from a Mark Twain novel. This film tells the story of a man from Connecticut getting knocked out and waking up in the realm of King Arthur, with the story ending with the protagonist being cursed to fall asleep for 1,300 years, waking up in contemporary modern day and treating the whole thing as a dream sequence. Here we have a few elements that are very common in early time travel stories. The main point is that it's treated as a dream sequence and there is no actual sci-fi involved, just a dream, which is basically a writer's get out of jail free card. Accidentally wrote your character into a corner with no feasible way out? Boom! It was all a dream. Because that won't piss off your readers. Regardless, the idea of time travel methods being achieved by machines and science was not widely used until the popularity of H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, released in 1895, and subsequent film adaptation in 1960. After this, the time travel genre across films and literature moved towards sci-fi category, which has stayed there ever since. Not to say that time travel is exclusive to sci-fi, there are plenty of uses of it in other genres, it's just that it's mainly focused in sci-fi and the methods and machines used to create time travel. After this, the release of these types of films in Hollywood was sparse, with one being released every few years. It wasn't until the massive popularity of the release of Back to the Future and The Terminator in the mid-80s that caused a massive flux of sci-fi genre to explode into the cinematic landscape, with many different films getting a variety of releases throughout the years, with certain trends, theories, and themes going in and out of style. After this point, the list gets long, and I mean really long, with various types of entries into the genre, mainly sci-fi, but also from rom-com to horror, and simple time travel theories to abstract metaphysical concepts that most people don't get and are just confusing on purpose. So because of that, I have created a list of all the time travel films I could find, and then in future videos I will attempt to explain the wider use specific theories of how time travel works, and what films fall into these categories. I'm not focusing on the methods, but rather the timeline and the chain of events. Oh, and before you ask, the list does have some rules. The first is that the films are only focusing on Western cinema. Believe me, I know, there are some great time travel films out there, but the list is just super long already, so for simplicity's sake, I'll just stick to these ones. Another rule is that time travel has to be a key element throughout the whole film, not just a tag on. So at the end of the original Superman of him flying backwards around the Earth doesn't count. Now let's look at how we'll approach these films and divide them into time travel theories. These categories include linear travel, double linear, time loops, closed loops, time windows and time skips, altered realities and timelines, time dilations and time rivers. Yes, I divided them all, and to reiterate, not crazy. Each of these categories will be explained and then given film examples to utilize them and any trends in cinema history they may have. All this to come in future episodes of Time Travel Talks. All will come in due time.